Hi, this is Bright Wolf back again. I got cut off in my last video. Something went wrong and something got cut off, and there was spent a little effort trying to get back on to make the second video. It's like something happened in the ether and up there something didn't like what I was saying and my technology went down. So I'm back online. This is Bright Wolf and I'm carrying on my video for fire, the element fire and Jesus, part 2. So here we go. As I was saying, the element of fire is powerful, and as we get onto the archetypes, we find out that actually pagans used to worship the sun goddess, not the sun god, and we switch as we come into a point where Christianity today worships a masculine energy and has fooled a lot of people into studying a deity that is actually falsifying and is actually the enemy of a lot of the people that actually are the true followers of Jesus. And I mentioned before my views on Jesus' real name. I mentioned before Jesus, his name is Joshua, or his actual name is Emmanuel, and I referred to the Talmud of Emmanuel, and now we're getting back on track. So the Talmud of Emmanuel was actually found in, I think it was Israel, or it was Iraq, one of the two. I'll have to go on and find the actual reference and actually quote the right country, but it was supposedly a tablet written by Joseph, who claimed to be Jesus' son, and it was actually the Joseph in the story of the Bible. But this was the Jesus we were talking about with the UFOs. The story includes Jesus didn't spend any time learning magic in the desert, but he actually went up into a craft, and he was given birth to by a star seed called Gabriel, who was, I mean, you can challenge me on this, but these are actual quotes that you can look at from the Talmud of Emmanuel. So a lot of Christians will be unhappy with this, but it is what it is. It's like the Talmud of Emmanuel explains how Jesus was being taught by UFO beings, transient extraterrestrial beings, and he had a lot of wisdom that was just ahead of his time. And I wanted to get into the subject of the fire element to Jesus. He was a warrior. It's not known, but Jesus actually took up the sword. He was actually a warrior, and yes, he did study yogic tantra, which is how he did his breathing techniques, and how he managed to survive such a traumatic experience as the crucifixion. I believe that he didn't actually do the crucifixion himself. I believe that in the Talmud of Emmanuel it explains that Judas took his place and wasn't actually like any type of betrayal at all. That was actually Paul. Paul was the deceiver who recognized the slandering of women, rape, abuse. It was okay to beat up your wife in those times and take money from people if it profited your business, from governments and stuff. He was really, like any crap that you read in the Bible will come from Paul. It'll come, any wife beating, rape, selfishness, anything that goes against what Jesus was trying to say. But Jesus was a warrior. He actually fought for his like beliefs, like the family, or the king. He was the king, but he was the king of the Moors, and the Moors were a warrior race. So he was actually he believed in standing up to the big fish or the big dog, and he believed in standing up to the Roman Empire, and extraterrestrials taught that the world wouldn't evolve until they stopped putting him on a pedestal or idolizing him, and actually did not see him anything but a prophet. That is when the actual Christ movement will come in. Because what I believe, and what I'm trying to say here is that, what I'm trying to teach is that there was the yin to Jesus's, the start of Jesus was 2,000 years ago. That was the yin, the masculine part of it, and all this flow in nature. Because you have to remember that the feminine is also the masculine. Because the government and the economic system and the Illuminati has switched what we used to worship and what we understood, which was the true Kundalini of the earth. It was actually feminine. This is actually a feminine planet. There's a reason it's called Mother Earth. But the yin in Jesus' birth was the start, when he actually stood for something and fought for things, and raised enough power and light, and he led people to salvation. But he also died for his beliefs. He died in another way. I hear he was beheaded, but he stood for things. And I believe he's still out there in spirit. You can look up channelings to Jesus and actually see people channeling him, and channeling aside, because that's another video for another time. Jesus stood for fighting, and there are physical fighters, so there's people who actually take up a staff or a sword or raise a fist. There's spiritual fighters. There's people who go out there on an aura of vibration and actually stand for something that isn't right, that doesn't sit right with their heart chakra. When you're fighting in a dream, that's astral fighting. It's a form of spiritual fighting. Jesus was not only a spiritual fighter, but he was also a physical fighter. I'm not the only one who will say this, but the government and the church and Christianity will want you to see Jesus as a pussy, or like a meek lamb, basically, on the frying pan, like on the cross, and they want you to see him as a limp, kind of tired, bloody, dried out deity. And he wasn't. He was actually full of power. He was actually full of retribution. He was full of the type of warm power and fire that could rival Krishna. The Indians, Krishna was born on the same date as Jesus, just a few thousand years before him, and he was a deity from their culture, and I believe he came to the Indians to teach them about the light and God, and about raising your awareness and reaching that higher level, reaching a higher state, not being an animal. And Krishna was a warrior as well. He was actually a warrior from the blue people. He was actually a blue Palladian. He was also in control of a lot of... he was giving a lot of help to the earth at that time. Cyrus, he was the Egyptians' form of Jesus. And these things repeat through history. And Jesus is still out there. You can tune into him on the astral. And Jesus isn't one of these people that says, this is my house, and there's an exclusive list. You can't come in. If you're gay, if you like men, if you're a pagan, if you're into something that other people don't like. As soon as you do something different, the sheep quiver and start to cluster together. But you don't have to do that. There's a lot of ways to follow your inner light, and I mean, Jesus taught that the inner energy or the inner salvation is in yourself, and that to look into your light, and that's what he was referring to when he was referring to the third eye, which actually releases the chemical DMT, and when you go to sleep, you close off the light. You close off the light to this world, and the inner light awakens, and DMT is released and excreted by the pineal gland, and eventually you go to sleep and you dream, and you actually enter another reality, and dreams have been proven to actually work on a level that is not bound by time and space. And Jesus was aware of that level in the physical state. But as I'm saying, he was also a warrior. He was fighting for something. So he was the yin at the start of the Christ movement, or the Christ energy. He was also not just the only start. We are the start, and we are also the yang. We are also the end. We are also the second movement, because the Christ movement is something that wasn't just exclusive to him. It was for everyone, and all these crystal children, everyone out there that's learning and starting to raise their vibration, starting to enter the 12 DNA Codex. You'll know what I'm talking about. You'll be familiar with other videos. I really recommend 13 Signs Astrology. That's a good channel to subscribe to, and I recommend listening to a lot of philosophy and doing creative things, turning off your TV, not playing too many shoot-up games, actually reading and putting a lot of colour in your life. Don't wear black all the time. Physical exercise is good. So what I was saying is that, and also plants get a lot of life in your house. Mirrors are a good way of clearing things out. Mirrors actually get rid of spirits, if you don't know. So Jesus, he knew that the economy and that money was the sole reason that people were being blinded, because slowly your gold has been taken away on this planet. There's not actually much gold on this planet. There's a lot of gold on the moon. That's why the moon glows so bright. NASA's blotched out a lot of that stuff, but there is actually a lot of gold on the moon. And I'm not here to prove anything. You can look up the videos yourself, people. You can look up, there's a lot of people who have seen and done the research, and there's apps to look that stuff up. And there's actually a lot of temples on the moon, and there's also a Swastika building. The Nazis is still up there. And it's very interesting. There's another topic for another day, and it's very interesting stuff to follow. So, like what Jesus was saying was that, and what also the Egyptians were saying, is that this body is like the body of the cot. It's a place for you to master your desires of the body, and your animalistic nature. And not to get me wrong, animals are very powerful energy points, but we are beasts, we are animals. Most of the world still eats meat. We still think that if we don't kill another animal each day, and there's not meat on the shelves like packaged paper, we're going to die. But we don't need to do that. Meat is actually dead energy, and when you consume it, you actually are recycling that dead energy into your temple, which is your body. And the meat that you eat is actually completing a cycle. I talked about this in my last video, about taking on meat and actually entering the animalistic nature of the planet, which actually is when the lion eats the zebra, and when nature takes on that vicious wild energy, you eat meat and you get eaten. So when you eat meat, you actually, on a higher spiritual realm, you get eaten in the astral, and the reptilians will eat you. You are giving permission on some higher plane to be eaten. I mean, when you consume meat. I don't know if fish is a part of that cycle. I think that the ocean is there to feed the planet. You know, we're meant to sweat. You're meant to sweat for what you got. You're meant to live by actually working for something in this world and sweat on the brow. So when you go out and you fish and when you sow seeds and when you wait for things to grow, you're actually being a part of nature. But when you take from this planet and when you kill and when you take an innocent animal and you farm them and you use them and then you slit their throat and you eat them and you eat their flesh and you put them on a plate, that is putting nature out of balance. That is giving into what the reptilians want, which is their teachings, which is that you must be a predatory animal and eat. So as above, so below. When you are taking on this plane, you're actually taking on a higher plane. So the Illuminati control 1% of this planet. Sorry, let me get that right. The Illuminati control 99% of this planet, and they're only 1%. So they're using money to do that. They've got their goddamn sigil on the dollar bill, and all it is a piece of paper. It's not real gold. Gold actually has properties. It is actually an elemental property which is used in alchemy, and it actually is one of the ingredients in enhancing lifespan and the Philosopher's Stone. And powdered gold is really good for that. A lot of people are starting to take that. I'm going to try it, so I'll make a video on that too. Minerals and alchemy are important, and what the Illuminati have done is they've replaced real things that you can hold in your hand with pieces of paper and tricked you so that they can steal from you. I mean, the bankers, when you go to the bank, and if you start to become an aware person, a spiritual person, you'll notice that your bank starts to get drained faster than normal people. You can go in and use your credit card, and things will be overdrawn, and like personally, things will they will ring you up and try to get you to have a fluctuating account and put you in debt, so that you're always under the zero and you go into negative, and then they use that to keep you under, so that you can never add to your own pot of energy and actually build on your own interests. They don't like you having control in any area of your life, and they can affect you mostly financially. So these people are trying to control how you live by taking from you and stealing from you. That the Illuminati will attack you when you start to become spiritual. So if they can control 99% and they're only 1%, how about 1% of the spiritual population control 99% of the Illuminati, and 99% of this earth that hasn't woken up yet and is still sleeping and needs to be made aware of how fucked we are on this planet and how much we actually need to actually take up a spiritual sword and a real sword and actually fight for our right to be recognised and not to be governed by a little slip of paper. It can go to extremes. You can have a flowing economy and get around on money, and then you can go to other points and actually you need a slip of paper to prove you are who you say you are, and then you get into the German and the Nazi regime of how things used to be when Hitler tried to take over the world. So when people try to attack you, when the Illuminati try to attack you, they've been infiltrated, the world is being changed and infiltrated, and they will try and pollute or stain your name. I personally have been attacked. They tried to tell me that I was crazy. They tried to tell me that I was unfit and that I had psychosomatic, unhealthy problems and schizophrenia. They tried to tell me all these things. The only time I've actually been schizophrenic is when I took some of the pills that they made me take, and I actually heard voices, and I fought very hard to get off that medication and actually to actually stop hearing the side effects that they made me hear. And it's amazing what they're actually putting in the drugs out there and actually giving to youth and actually trying to change people. Pharmaceuticals is a multi-million-dollar business, and what they're doing is they're getting book-read doctors to actually poison young, beautiful, potential youths that are actually trying to get rid of the old sober beliefs of the world and come back to nature. Natural medicines and plants are the way to go. On the YouTube at the moment, it's slowly becoming clear that marijuana is actually the cause and the key for curing cancer, and that there's a few people who have cured themselves of bowel cancer using marijuana injections and TLC injections, and it's also curing Asperger's and helping people to come out of comas, and this is very amazing stuff. So when people threaten you from a government point of view, or they get to you somehow through your family or something, you just need to stand up for yourself. It took me many years. I've had to learn the hard way that people don't like crystal children. They will actually work hard to pollute your name and throw you away pretty much and get rid of you and lock you up. It's not just crazy people or mental health people that they try and label you as. African Americans will know for sure that they've all been locked up at some point and chucked away, put in prison, and I can't relate on that level, but I can relate, if you know what I mean. Like, I have been locked up before, and I think it's a shame of what they do. Spiritual people are just more sensitive, they're just more aware, and they're actually scientifically proven. The statistics show that they're actually more intelligent. They're actually got a lot more intellectual influence in this world, and they can sense danger before it happens, and that's why they're more sensitive, because they just are able to think ahead of things. So I don't want to go too much into that, but part of having an enemy is that when you have a rival, your job as a magician and as a magic practitioner is to actually calm out, leaving your enemy a better person, a good person, and that's what the Warrior of Light is. It's actually about leaving your rivals, curing them of their darkness, and actually you've got a lesson. When you're entwined with someone, you've got a lesson to teach them, and they've got a lesson to teach you, and you've got to make them see what they're doing, because you've got to make them kind of you've got to teach them to be good. If they're working with a light worker and they take on a light worker, they've got a lesson to learn. They're going to learn something. Jesus knew that. Jesus was hated on. He was attacked. He had stones thrown at him. There is a lot of people out there that are raising their vibration, and they're coming across naysayers and non-believers and people who are so thick in their own doubt that they haven't even looked beneath the surface, they haven't even thought about what is actually out there, above the sky. They don't look up. They don't watch the stars, and the stars have actually got a lot to teach us. There's a lot actually happening out there. Does anyone actually know that the moon has been upside down for the last 2 years and has actually been wobbling? Does anyone know that? Does anyone know that there's structures on the moon, and that most of the gold is actually off planet right now? Does anyone know that there's NASA's covering up so much dead kind of bodies and attacks on the moon from battles, at least at least 20,000 years ago, like a long time ago. We're talking ancient Sumeria. There's UFO technology on there from that period. There's a video on there you might want to go search. It's about like dead bodies found on the moon. Two women who were pilots of a UFO. Now that's amazing. These women had such beautiful skin. I don't mean beautiful. They were pleasant to look at. You could tell from them, from their cadavers, that they were beautiful when they were alive. But they actually had such preserved skin that they weren't decomposing. They were just chipping. Now, it's not because of the coldness in space, because that wasn't preserving them. They were actually brought back down to Earth and they didn't decompose. They were just chipping because they had such good technology back in ancient Sumeria that they were able to live for hundreds of years, just as it states in the Bible. So I'm not going to be on here much longer. So I'm going to wrap up this video. So fire energy. Fire is really important for creativity. You should be doing something and following fire. You need to be burning off some of that energy. You have karma on this life, and you need to burn it off. And you actually can do that by studying some of the arts. And actually, art is good. Being creative is good. Learning an art form, whether that be martial arts or whether that be simple art forms like going for a surf or running or learning like linking up with people and learning to paint or learning to sew, learning to do something, taking up a hobby, making dream catches. These are all really good things, and they reach back to past lives and actually connect you with a beautiful and golden time when you are living as one with the earth. So I understand as a pagan magician that that I am connected to everyone, and I'm connected not just to pagans but to all star children and all crystal children and all indigo children, whether you're a different race. Colour doesn't matter, race doesn't matter, age doesn't matter. There are old people out there who have something to teach, and they will be young again when they reincarnate. And you must respect everyone. I mean, you can't just go around believing that you are the one true saviour for your kind. You are the one true saviour for a consciousness, which is everyone in your vibration, and all the star children. You need to be open, and you need to protect the animals. And I mean, meat. I don't know why people are eating so much meat and why it's such a necessity. I mean, these McDonald's franchises that are up, you might as well just call them cow away, because that's all you're doing is you're going there with your families and loading up on cow. I mean, you don't need it. They're actually animals, and they could actually evolve if you gave them time and maybe treated them nice. You know, cows actually act like dogs when you feed them. They run up to you and bound and they lick you. It's a very beautiful thing trying to go vegetarian. You actually you lighten your density, and you actually can have a connection with nature that isn't so selfish as mankind has been taught to kind of practice. The selfishness needs to go. We are living in a time where there is just one little man behind everything, pulling strings. You know, like the Wizard of Oz. The Illuminati is just a little wizard behind a big screen, pulling levers and making smoke come. It's all a show. It's all a show. They're actually worried about the return of a Christ figure. They're actually worried about the return of a Jesus and an energy and the crystal children and the Palladians, and they're worried about the return of that Ra energy. They twist a lot of things, and Satan. I mean, what is Satan? Satan's it's actually just a life pattern. It's a DNA codex. It's a spiritual codex. It's a way of doing things. It's not one single guy who has got a really nice black jacket and runs the darkness. Satan is an energy force. It's a way of cutting himself off from the rest of mankind and nature and the universe, and actually being selfish. It's just another experience that God used itself to achieve more self-understanding. God is diversity. God is everything that you want it to be. God is experience, and the Lucifer pathway is just another experience that God has. Understanding the dark, not being afraid of it. I mean, most people think that magic is like something you do where you get a couple of hags and you light a fire and you put on drum music and you dance around cackling and you raise demons. This isn't the case. Magic is elemental flow. It's precision. It's geometry. It's spiritual geometry. It's like using the art of nature to contact the tree of life. And you don't have to be. I mean, people think that demons are just the only thing that you can contact with magic. I mean, demons are just what the Pope and Christianity used to damn paganism, so that people wouldn't actually start studying nature again and being self-aware and actually enhancing their spirituality, so that they would pay money to government-funded operation, which is the church. And there's no such thing as demons. There's just spirits. There are dark energies out there. There's always spirits and stuff that want to take your energy, and there's things out there like the jinn. Some of them don't like you. Some of them will help you. Most of them don't like humanity. And they're just from another dimension. They came from this dimension. They were pushed out when we came in to this reality, when we were. Because the stars and the earth, it's a portal. It's a place where to have magic you need a place, a location, and you need power, and you need a physical location. Well, not a physical, but you need a place. And Earth is one big eye. Earth is one big eye. It's one big portal, and life happens here. I wanted to kind of go over that, which is that darkness is actually it's a test to overcome. It's being aware that there's infinity, and it's actually to do with the ego, and it's actually a test that you need to learn. You need to be able to overcome your fear. If you react in fear, you can't react in a battle situation. You can't react in a situation that requires you make the right decision. And it's the same with God. If you react in fear, you're actually letting the Illuminati and darkness win. If you react with your heart, even in time of fear, you will do the right thing. And I'm not damning Christians. I just think that they've got a lot of stuff wrong, and that the story of Christianity was falsified and rewritten so many times by the Catholic Church. It's not funny. I mean, he had a real name, and Jesus. I believe in Jesus. I think he was a powerful magician and a man. I think he was just a man, and I think that the God power that he came in with was actually to prove that a man can have God's power, not the Son of God, which is why the church wanted to falsify and weaken his image and put him nailed to a fucking cross, because he was actually, that wasn't actually what Jesus was about. He was actually about not dealing with that, and he was actually about fighting for things. He wasn't weak, and that's the same with all light workers. Paganism is just one way. It's just one aspect to geometry and magic, and I think that you need to get back in touch with your planets and study your zodiac. Study healthy options when it comes to the plants that the Mother Earth provides. I mean, marijuana may be coming to cure cancer, and people may use it to get creative, but it's still a temporary result for what you actually want to achieve in here, in your third eye and in your chakras. So it's being one with the earth, but it's also not needing anything to be happy. You know, so like why you've got to look around and realise that we are living, we are ready to ascend as a people and as the children of spirit, the Moors, the crystal children. We are the sons of God. We are that Christ energy. He has come back in every single one of us. Yeah, so I want you to start studying the occult and actually going, hang on a minute, if I learn about this, maybe I can fucking do my part to take down the Illuminati, because they can't use magic and spells against me. They can't use one little sigil. You know, when you're carrying around the Eye of Horus in your wallet every single day, you're actually carrying that around more than you would if you carried around a cross or a pentagram or a Star of David. You have to think about these things. Where does your attention lie? Do what you love. Do what you love, because it will lead you to prosperity. And that's all I'm going to say. So that's Bright Wolf. I'm going to keep making more videos. I'm going to talk a bit more about Jesus, but I needed to touch on him this time around because I haven't really gotten into Jesus at the moment. And everyone needs to keep a dream diary. And just like my page, subscribe. Ask me if you want me to do a video. Cheers, guys. Peace out.